Okay, so today we are going to see what is exception handling and how it is used in Java. So exception is an abnormal condition that arises due to your code sequence at runtime. So we have a compile time errors and runtime errors. So during compile time means whenever you make a mistakes in syntactical errors. So during compile time you will get that error. That is what we have done earlier before exception handling. But during runtime, even though your syntactical code is syntactically correct, but exceptions might occur. So those are called as runtime errors. So for Java, whenever there is an exception occurs, we have to uh, see what kind of exception it is so that it can be handled. For Java, we have five keywords. So your exception can be handled by using these. So try, catch, throw, throws, and finally. So today we are going to see what try and catch means. So try and catch, these are the blocks. So we'll write some code within these two blocks so that we can handle your exceptions. So syntactically, so try and catch will be written as, so syntactically it is given as try this code. So we'll write some code here. So and in catch we will catch that exception. Whatever the exception occurred in this block, we will catch in this block. So we'll see programmatically how it is done. So before that, we'll see what try block is for. Try block is the code, the Java code. You may think it might produce a exception during runtime. So during runtime, it produces an exception. If you think you have to put that code here in this block. So for any of try, we have to put a catch block so that it can be handled. Either you put catch block or finally, but it is necessary to put a catch block so that what kind of exception occurred so that we can get it. So we'll see with the example how it is used in Java. So I just created a class called test exception and we'll write a simple code int equals to 5. So I written a simple code. I want to divide a divided by b, but initialized with a5 and b equals to 0. Then I'll run this code, but this code is syntactically correct because there is no error, and we will run this and we'll see what will happen. So after running this code, something exception in the thread main occurred, divide by 0. So arithmetic exception has occurred in this code. So we need to tell the user because he doesn't understand what kind of exception it is. So as a user, I have to show him what exception really occurred. So as a programmer, I know, but as a user, we don't know what uh, it is trying to tell this code. So now I will just make a change to this code how we can use. So try, it is a block. So block means a block of statements, and I'll just put this and catch. So catch exception e, then I'll just print some statements. exception has occurred. Now, so I'll run this code. So if you run this code, I will get exception has occurred. Now, okay, so that is the code which is generating some error within this block, and because of that, exception has occurred. So exception occurred at this line of exception. Exception occurred at this line of code. Exception has occurred, and it is directly jumped to this catch block. So whatever written in this catch block will just printing exception has occurred. So user will come to know exception has occurred in this line. So it is not executing this result system println statement. Sorry. Uh, so I'll make a change here. So b equals to 0 to 3. Again, I'll run this same code. Okay, so I'm printing means a try block is simple Java code where try and catch block are just embedded within your Java code. If any exception has occurred, then the catch block will get executed. Otherwise, this catch block is not gets executed. So according to this code, my code will stop here, try. It is not executed the catch block. So whenever there is an exception, then only the catch block gets executed. So I'm printing result a by b. Result is printed, so I'm not executing this block. Okay. Okay. So this exception, it handles all kinds of exception because exception, it is a class. So it can handle any runtime exceptions which are thrown. But if there are multiple exceptions occurred in this try block, there might be some problem. So there might be an issue. So we'll see. So I'll just make a change to this code. I will add some more lines. Like I will have an integer array. So I made some changes. Now I'll just rerun this code. Okay, so there are some exceptions. It is throwing exception has occurred. Now there are so many multiple lines of code, but this is the exception which is generic one which is handled. But I'll just make another change b equals to 0 to 3, and again I will rerun this code because it is a divide by 0. We can't divide any number by 0, so I'll make a change and again I'll rerun this code. But I'm just getting exception has occurred because still I don't know whether I have made a change since divide by 0 is gone, but still it is telling me exception has occurred. I don't know what kind of exception it is, but it is a generic exception. So uh, we don't want a generic exception because it will catch whatever the exceptions you are throwing. We want a specific exception. So specific exception is one. So actually the exception occurred at this line of code exception because we have declared an array of size 2, but we have initialized to c of 4. So there is a size of array is 2, but I am accessing an index value 4. Because of that, I'm getting an exception. So how we can do this? So we can do this by changing us in our code like catch. Instead of generic exception, I'll make a change as so I made these changes generic exception as arithmetic exception and array index out of bonds exception. So these are the specific exceptions which may happen in my code, so I want to catch them. So these are the subclass of your exception. Array index out of bounds exception and arithmetic exception is a subclass of your main class exception. So they will only handle arithmetic exception or array index out of bounds exception. If any other exception occurs, they won't catch. So I'll rerun my code, and again it is telling me now this line of code is okay, but there is a problem at this. So user will now directly come to know might be there is a problem in this array index out of bound exception where I am accessing my array index. So it will jump to this catch and it will tell me the what kind of error has really occurred in your this block of code. So that will give a fair idea. So it is better to use a generic exceptions like this arithmetic exception and array index out of bounds exception. So we can have multiple exceptions. So I can have, if there is a code which may generate any exceptions, which you can add here some code, some line of code. So it will generate you uh, any exception. So I can again catch here in the catch block. So I can have a catch and that exception, what kind of exception it is generating. So I can add here. So that will give a fair idea. Okay.